Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast with Dotun Adebayo and Tim Vickery.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast. Today, rounding up everything that's happened in the last FIFA dates, we don't have Dotun, who's not taken Nigeria's elimination very well. He's sloped off into the misery somewhere, and he's probably like a bat hanging upside down, trying to get some sleep and sleep the whole thing off. But we do have, for your delectation, we do have good egg and all-round Renaissance man, Tommy Stewart. Rock on, Tommy.
Lovely to be here, Tim. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. Stewart is Scottish surname. Is there any Scottish blood coursing through those veins?
Well, I don't think so. I think there might be somewhere a little bit back, but my dad, who is quite a stoic and shy kind of guy, and he doesn't drink anymore, like myself, actually, but he, the only time, he's 72 now, the one time I've ever seen him do karaoke, and the only time he's ever done karaoke in his whole entire life, he claims, was to sing in Spain, Flower of Scotland, because he takes some sort of ownership of the Stewart name, as if there is some sort of Scottish in there. I think there's a desire, there's a craving, and a will to be Scottish. And me, as a Man United fan, who is still living vicariously through Scott McTominay, who has just written a freelance piece, 2,000 words, about his adventures in Napoli, was a Scotland fan the other night.
So your dad was singing it for Britain. He had to do or die. And we're also joined by the man of the hour, Joe Gould, who has bang, 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 FIFA date after FIFA date after FIFA date. He will now go and hibernate until the end of March. But I imagine he's going to hibernate with his soul full of what's happened over the last few days. Come on down, Joe Gould.
Yes, it was a very fulfilling international break for sure. There was a lot of history made. Obviously, we have a new smallest nation who's qualified for the World Cup in Curacao, so that's fantastic. Haiti is back as well, which was a big surprise. I mean, we knew they were in the picture, but they surprised us all, and they're actually the first country to go through World Cup qualifying without playing any home matches and reaching the World Cup, which is spectacular.
Wow. So,
yeah. Lots to go over for sure.
If I could just get the dull part out of the way, I was watching some of the friendlies involving the South American sides on this quite new Brazilian channel, which is part YouTube and part conventional TV, and they just drove me absolutely mad. They spent the whole game saying, "Give us a like. Our target now is 40,000 likes." I was thinking, for crying out loud, shut up. But now, a little bit of hypocrisy, because you can give us a like, can't you? Subscribe to the channel, join the WhatsApp channel, and so on, blah, 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 blah. You're going to do all of that, so I don't have to say it anymore. Okay, done deal. Onwards and downwards. And onwards and downwards, where I want to start is Uruguay, because this will also get us into the CONCACAF region and the hosts. But of all of the friendlies that we saw from the South American perspective, or in Brazil, I think is very interesting. They're clearly back. The win against Senegal was extremely impressive. The draw against Tunisia less so, but they don't look like conceding too many. And Ancelotti has got the four up front to work. We will see if they will be able to play that way in the extreme heat of North America next year. But probably the most significant was Uruguay taking an absolute shellacking from not even the full strength USA side. The result, ladies and gentlemen, in Tampa, if you're not aware, was USA 5, Uruguay 1, and it was 4-0 after about 40 minutes. This was the apprentice putting 1.5 over the sorcerer, Pochettino and Marcelo Bielsa. Now, we'll get onto the States, Joe, in just a minute, but just with Uruguay, Bielsa has called a press conference for later on tonight, and no one knows what's going to happen. He isn't being sacked. Is this him resigning? He's done it a fair few times. He doesn't give interviews. He only does press conferences. And I've seen him in press conferences asked, are you going to resign? And he's doesn't look at anyone. He just looks at this fixed point, and he big hand at the microphone, getting the microphone and saying, no. This time the answer might be different because he's in real trouble there. It looked like a good fit because Uruguay needed a generational change when he took over. And you could see there the sketch of a team. And it started extremely well. Really, really well. They were, for a little while, they were the form side in South America. They had one of Uruguay's most convincing ever wins over Brazil. They won in Buenos Aires against Argentina, Argentina's first defeat since becoming World Cup champions. Started the Copa America very well, and then suddenly they hit a wall in that Copa America. Hit a wall. And since then, the goals have dried up. The football has dried up. I think in the last 12 rounds of World Cup qualification, they failed to score 8 times. And for a Bielsa side, I mean, it's how they're going to play. Maybe that's one of the problems. They haven't been creating anything, and they're set up to create. And against the States, they were just totally, absolutely massacred, technically, physically, in terms of morale. And you look at Bielsa in the press conference afterwards, all he did, I think, was find about 20 different ways to blame himself. But he's got good players playing extremely badly. Bentancur was sent off, and the game was already gone. It had no influence on the result whatsoever. But he was terrible. He was just late all the time, every time. Ugarte, who's a player I like a lot, maybe he's treading water at the moment. Again, you didn't really see him. And the US just passed the ball around them and through them and won all the 50-50 duels. And there's some interesting players there. So real problems for Uruguay. We will find out later tonight if Bielsa goes. But from the point of the States, Joe, my God, they looked impressive. And there's some really good players. I mean, the centre-back Freeman, what a player he is. So the obvious question is, where has this team been hiding? And how is morale now looking ahead to the World Cup?
Yeah. So a couple months ago when I was on the show, we were talking about how it felt like it was at a huge low. I don't know if I want to say an all-time low, but since then things have started to pick up, and yeah, they had a fantastic window. They beat Paraguay, they beat Uruguay, just insane. I was watching the World Cup qualifiers, so I'll be honest, I didn't catch a lot of the Uruguay match. I caught all of the Paraguay match, though. And yeah, there was one player in particular, and then he's a very controversial figure with U.S. soccer fans, and that's Gio Reyna.
Yeah.
And he started in that game against Paraguay, and I personally actually thought he played pretty well. I was impressed with the way that he played. But he gets a lot of stick from U.S. soccer fans for various reasons. But yeah, I thought in both games they played well. I can't speak too much about the Uruguay game. I just saw the result in a few bits and bobs here and there. But yeah, they looked good, and the form is certainly picking up, and that's what we want to see right now heading into next summer. So positive for sure.
Well, Reina was, it was because the company I work for, obviously, for Men in Blazers, are American, and we do, I work on, the newsletters, and we talk about.
Am I sharing company now with 2 people who both use the expression USMNT? Please.
you told me off for this last time, didn't you?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Reina's a funny one because he was, I think, like my boss Rog was writing about it and saying, like, he came up, he was the big star boy after Christian Pulisic of US football, and he came up with Haaland essentially in that Dortmund team. Haaland, Sancho, and there was and obviously his father as well. There's a lot of expectation on him, and he's kind of, for lack of a better word, just I suppose what the young people would say is like fallen off or flopped, and which is unfair. Like, he's still young and there's still a lot of time. But even He's playing with someone else in Germany, isn't it? Is it
Gladbach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gladbach. And I think he's only got like something like 200, 250 minutes for them this season.
He's not-
so like
yes.
it didn't, even his call up was totally out of the blue. And for some, I don't know, it kind of felt this was his chance. He had to perform in these matches if he was going to make the squad next year. And, you know, fair play to him. He's took his chance, because I think that's a really difficult thing to do. If you're not getting club football at like a lesser Bundesliga side than Borussia Dortmund, if you can't even get football there, then something must be sort of going amiss. So to sort of stake his claim in such big matches and also just quickly, did anyone see Pochettino's press conference where he went at the journalist? He snapped back. So basically they sort of said, you've performed so well with this rotated squad with all these like different players. And he was, you know, essentially sort of insinuating in quite a polite way. He did go a bit hard on the journalist, but sort of insinuating that this was a bit of a B team, a bit of a B squad with Pulisic missing.
Sure.
Was Richards there?
Adams.
Yes, Adams. Yeah, exactly. Like, but you know, the 4 or 5 best players essentially.
Yeah.
And Pochettino was just he lost his shit basically. He was like, I don't like that question. I don't. What are these first 2 questions that you've just given me? What is a B? I don't understand what you mean by sort of rotating, because they're all good players to me. But it's kind of like, I've been in this job. I've been working for an American company for 7-8 months now, and the progress in that short space of time, because like you said, 4 or 5 months ago, it was looking like he might even get the sack. Like it was looking like the end of days for him as the manager, and there was sort of no identity.
Is this a good time for me to start taking credit for getting him the job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've already taken credit for that before.
Well, before I was a bit apologetic. I was a bit apologetic the last time, so now I think I was right all along.
You earned that one for sure. Well, yeah, I've got an interesting stat for you, and Tim may have heard this, but the defeat by Uruguay was the worst defeat for a CONMEBOL nation, a national team, against a CONCACAF rival since the United States beat Bolivia 4-0 in a friendly in 2016. And interestingly, another one, I've got it written down here, a CONCACAF national team has not scored 5 or more goals against another CONMEBOL team since Mexico's 5-0 thrashing against Bolivia in a friendly in 2010. So
it's all Bolivia, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Not Uruguay.
Not Uruguay.
I feel sorry for you, Joe, for, you know, obviously you were otherwise engaged with the stuff that mattered, you know, that final round of CONCACAF, because I can't believe the States have ever played better. The movement of the ball was terrific, and they passed holes in Uruguay. They really did. It was a wonderful performance, and I wonder. I mean, Tommy, perhaps you've got a feel from this from your employers, what the expectations suddenly are for next year.
It's changed. It's certainly changed after these matches. Like the way we're posting on social and the way we're kind of writing about it has. But I mean, I guess it has been building up over the last few matches. It's really hard, isn't it, when you're a host nation, to know where your team is really at, because you're not playing competitive matches. But I think the way Pochettino is stressed so much, his whole thing this whole time, from what I've been reading, and like I've kind of got sucked in by it a bit, because obviously, like with England, you sort of play the same. It seems like it's rotational. The teams you play in qualifiers every 2 years or every 4 years, and they kind of just walk it. So I have kind of got quite invested in this in the USMNT. Apologies, Tim. But from it being pure pessimism, you know, like I said 6 months ago, based on the last few results against sort of top 20, top 30 ranked FIFA teams, compared to how they did in the league, the Nations League, not that long ago, it's massively improved, and I think a lot of that is based on what Poch's done, which is kind of mirrored by what Tuchel's done in the whole, you know, leave your ego out door, and that's not how this team is going to function. It's going to players like Diego Luna come into the fore. Like I'm a big fan of his for the US. Just players who will run and play like a Pochettino team should.
Mhm.
And finally, in these last few matches, they are actually looking like that. They have the identity and the style of a Pochettino team. So I think the penny's dropped, and from what I can tell, the now it will be back to we're going to win the World Cup.
So I want to hear your guys' opinion though. Do you think for Uruguay, I mean, do you think the players do you think that they kind of, I don't want to say did it on purpose, but do you think they've lost all motivation?
Well, what we heard during that Copa America, afterwards, Luis Suarez retired from international football, and he went out in a blaze of bile. And he was saying that the relationship between the coach and the players has totally broken down, because there isn't a relationship between the players and the coach. Because, let's say we meet Bielsa in the corridor, he doesn't even acknowledge our existence, but this is Bielsa.
Yeah.
You wonder, I think, whether this style is appropriate for the modern day player. This style worked better with previous players, and the modern day players are looking for more interaction and more contact. So you do wonder if he's a yesterday's man. Hence, it's because clearly there's something very, very badly wrong, very, very badly wrong. And I'm fascinated to see what he has to say for himself tonight. Just quickly to do, because we got a question lined up, but just quickly to do the other hosts. And Mexico, I'm seeing lots of complaints, and even people in Mexico saying, blimey, if we were in South America, we wouldn't even qualify. Joe, where do you think Mexico are at the moment? How bad do you think they are?
Yeah. So again, a couple months ago, we were having a totally different conversation, isn't it? It's funny how these things just ebb and flow like they do, right? And yeah, there's a lot like role reversal at the moment, and Mexico is kind of on a downward slump, I would say. I did catch that. I did catch their game against Uruguay, that 0-0, and it was
unwatchable.
Rough. Yeah, that was a rough one. And I think actually those are two teams who are in kind of similar situations right now in many ways, in terms of mentality, in terms of frustrations, in terms of like expectations with the coaches. And
I really like Aguirre. I remember being in Colombia for the Copa America 2001 when he took over at short notice when they were in problems, and the difference that he made to that team was extraordinary. He got them compact, he got them playing. They got to the final of the Copa America, and I always suspect in that 2002 World Cup, had they not had to play the States, they could have gone further. The problem was playing the States. But just quickly on, because we got a question lined up. Canada, the other host, I didn't see their win over Venezuela. I saw the draw with Ecuador. They had a man sent off very early. But what really struck me is how different they look from the team that went to the last World Cup, which they were a joy to watch, I thought, in the last World Cup. But they were a little bit happy-go-lucky and naive. And Jesse March, I think, has them very different. They seem to me, and it's hard to judge after seeing a game with 10 men.
Yeah,
but they seem to me to be much less flowing and much less idealistic, perhaps, but tougher. And with home advantage, they will. The Welsh have a lovely word, hoil. It's a word with no vowels. And it just means they kind of get in there. And there was lots of that from Jesse Marsh on the bench as well. I wonder how far Hoyle can take them. How much progress do you imagine them making, Joe?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I agree with you. I think they're changing, and whether it's an evolution, I don't know. It kind of remains to be seen, right? That was, I think, the general idea initially, is to take them and get them to go further. Where I think in a World Cup, work rate is obviously important. How far can it take you? I don't know. A lot of it depends on the draw too, but yeah, I think they're doing better than Mexico. Like a hot take, they're probably doing better than Mexico. Don't know if they're maybe on the same level, or maybe the US is now pulled slightly ahead in terms of form, I would say.
Right. I really love watching them. Especially at the start of the World Cup last time around. Was it Belgium, the first game? And they just played them off the
Yes,
park, but they
so,
couldn't take chances. And then that they went too open against Croatia, and they got mullered. But it was lovely. It was a big surprise to me. The performance against Belgium, I thought was one of the best in the entire World Cup. From a level of, do you have hopes of them, Tommy?
Well, I think the players seem they seem invested in Jesse Marsch, and I think I'd say it would be hard not to be invested in Jesse Marsch. It would also be very easy not to be invested in him. So I guess it depends how it goes. Like, and I don't want to be unfair, and I don't want to tar him with this brush like much of the English media did. But it's the whole sort of Ted Lasso thing, isn't it?
I've never seen it. Sorry, you have to explain this one to me.
He's a very, I mean, not that the football is reflective of this, but he's very personable, very positive, very sort of cliche American. Like, it's about belief, and we can do this, and kind of charming, kind of a lovable guy. And I think that was kind of I think because he's nice and he's quite affable, like he kind of got unfairly tarred with that brush. Because also when you see him break,
he wasn't very nice on the touchline against Ecuador.
Yeah,
Blimey, they moaned and moaned about one of those unfortunate red cards, but a pretty standard red card. Blimey, did they moan?
Yeah, and also, I mean, have you seen him do sort of tactical breakdowns? He did one on Sky Sports a few years ago, and he was showing videos from his training. I think it was when he was at Leeds, actually, and it was incredibly impressive the way he spoke about football, the way he spoke about the game, the way he spoke about his system. So, I mean, I think, why not? Why can't they do it? But I suppose my question would be to you, Joe, is how you feel about is it weird, like him managing Canada?
Yeah, it is, because I think a lot of us thought that he would be maybe in line for the US job, but the timing, I think the timing didn't quite work out, right? And I still think at some point we'll probably see him take charge of the US. It is weird. I mean, he's kind of trash talked the US actually while he's been in his role as Canada manager, and so that's not sitting well with some people. And it's a very curious thing. But obviously, he went through the Red Bull system, which does a really good job actually of developing coaches.
Yeah.
And so that's a positive, and he's doing all right with Canada right now. I mean, the real test will be next summer, obviously. But yeah, is it weird? Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I'm just glad to know for him that you think he can still, because I do really like him. I've always had a soft spot for him, but that he's not played his way out of that job by taking the Canada job. I imagine it would still be his ultimate aspiration to be the USMNT manager.
The Usman's manager. It's still possible. Unfortunately, our caller Matt has dropped off. Come back, Matt. Come back, Matt. All is forgiven. Once, of course, you've hit the subscribe button and done all the join the WhatsApp channel and all of that. Joe Gould has an impeccable excuse for missing out on one of the great nights of the Usmans, because he was right across that last round of the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers. Joe, talk us through it.
Yeah, incredible night. Curacao, we've already mentioned them, but they're going to their first World Cup, smallest nation ever. They did it. They got the job done in Jamaica. It was quite a game. Jamaica hit the woodwork 3 times. Curacao had a few opportunities to counter and score. There's one in particular that just sticks out in the mind. It was a 2v1, and he just had to make the pass, and he couldn't get the pass off. So, yeah, a really fun night. A really fun night for Curacao for sure. And Jamaica will now head to the playoffs. It's got to be disappointing for Jamaica. McLaren.
Yeah, the manager has resigned.
He's
McLaren
resigned.
has resigned. They've got New Caledonia, for crying out loud. I mean,
Yeah.
do you think this is?
Did he know?
Is it a crisis? Well, I think Jamaica's been in crisis actually for a little bit. I think they've been able to paper over the cracks because of the World Cup qualifying group in this last round that they had. Everybody expected them to take that automatic spot, but we've been watching Curaçao closely, and they've had a project going for quite some time. And it's interesting to hear the story about how Curaçao kind of got here. Part of it is that a couple years ago they were on the hunt for a Dutch manager. They went to a few guys.
Surely, what was Steve McLaren? Was he not available then?
Guess not. They wanted. I don't think he speaks Dutch, so but
just the accent. Just the accent.
Yes.
So Curaçao went to Louis van Gaal first. He turned them down because he wanted to coach his next team. He wanted it to be a team that could win the World Cup. That was what he said to the federation, the Curaçao Federation. They also went to Bert van Marwijk, I think is and he declined as well. And then the federation office got a call one day, and it was Dick Advocaat, and he said, "Hey, I want to do this. Like, I want to be your, I want to take them. I think if we get these players, because obviously with his heritage, he knows the connections between the Netherlands and Curaçao, which is very strong. In fact, there's as many Curaçao natives in the Netherlands as there is on the island itself. Yep. So very strong ties. Wow. Anyways, and so he said, I want to do this, and he is one of the reasons why Curaçao is where they are right now, because he's such a good man manager, and obviously he's got the tactical background with coming up through the Dutch system, right? And his ability to work with these players. I mean, they just love him. They totally adore him. He wasn't actually on the sidelines for that last match because his wife was having health problems, so he had to leave the team. But he was on the phone with the coaches who were doing it during the game, and so he was in contact with them, and I think that was some extra motivation for the Curaçao national team too during that game, because he wasn't there and they wanted to do it for him. So wow. Yeah, it's an incredible story, one of the best for sure. I would put that up there with like Cape Verde probably in terms of one of the stories of this World Cup qualifying campaign. So that was Curaçao.
What's their population? Sorry, is it? Did I read 150,000?
Yeah, I think it's less than that. I think it's 133.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It's like a town. It's like a town. A town have qualified for a World Cup. Yeah. Another World Cup story that I love, I think this is right. In Russia in 2018, there's a European team, Belgium, who are a terrific team who are going to reach the semi-finals of this tournament. And their first game is also the first World Cup game of Panama. And yes. Panama have more fans in the stadium than Belgium. And here they are, back again.
They're back. Yeah, they're back. It is something else. Look, they were in the group with Suriname. Suriname went to Guatemala City, and it was ugly. An own goal from Guatemala pushed Suriname into the playoffs, which is wild. So Panama, yeah, I mean, they got the job done. It wasn't pretty. I think people expected it to maybe be slightly easier than that. I personally had Suriname going through there, so I missed that one. But they still have a chance. But yeah, Panama is back. I worry about Panama a little bit, just because they have an aging squad. They haven't really cycled through a whole lot of youth. But on that same night that they qualified, on Tuesday night, there was another young Panamanian star who broke onto the scene for Botafogo. Tim probably knows.
Yeah. No, he scored Kadir. He scored a couple of goals. I actually class Panama as almost a South American team because, Joe, Panama was part of Colombia until you lot wheedled it away so you could have you could have a canal. So it's almost a South American team.
Joe. I blame Joe for this.
I certainly do, and the Usment as well. Clearly, Haiti. What a fabulous story Haiti is.
Yeah, again, so knocking out both Honduras and Costa Rica, two traditional CONCACAF powers. Both of those teams are not going to the World Cup. I mean, what a disaster, absolute disaster for both of them. And Haiti, yeah, they had a really strong month, and they had a pretty decent month last time out as well. You know, there's one player that they've brought in that has caught my attention, and he came on in the second half of their last match last month, which I think was against Honduras, if I remember correctly. But since they've brought on Hannes Del Croix, who plays at Burnley, I don't think he's a starter at Burnley, but he plays at Burnley. Haiti has not conceded any goals.
Wow.
And that was one of their big problems over September and October, is that they were leaking, you know? And so for them to be able to bring a player in and shore up the defense like that, I think is huge. He's partnered in the back with Ricardo Ade, who plays for Liga de Quito.
Terrific big centre back, top player.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And you've seen much more of him than I have. But yeah, I think that's a good partnership for them going forward. So I still have questions about Haiti's defense, especially going into the World Cup. I hope it's not the case, but I do worry that Haiti could be one of those teams where we could see an ugly scoreline.
Could any of these teams do a Costa Rica in 2014? You know, Costa Rica, to remind people, they're in the group with 3 former champions. They're in with England, Italy, and Uruguay. They're making up the number. They're making up the numbers, aren't they? Yeah, it's all. You know, they beat Italy. They beat Uruguay. They qualify, and they keep going as well. And they took a lot of stopping, and no one saw it coming. Are any of these teams capable of doing something similar?
Say yes. Say yes.
No, I think that sounds like a no to me.
It's a very English.
No.
Yeah, it's a very English noise, that actually, and a very English expression.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I do kind of have my doubts. I would love it. But I have my doubts right now. Yeah.
This is the beauty, though, is of the expanded edition, isn't it? Just a quick point. Yeah, it's just like a lot of people criticize it, and I understand why. But I say a lot of people. That's people from England, which is my sort of echo chamber. You know, people, entitled people in a kind of entitled society who are, you know, we're used to, like I said before, like we're used to just strolling.
The same ones who say that no one cares about the Club World Cup.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Those people. Yeah. Exactly the same people.
Can I just quickly make one more point on Haiti? I think too, you know, their squad is made up mostly of players who are not. I don't think there's anyone playing in the country. You know, Haiti's obviously going through a really tough time right now, like the poorest country in the world, so on and so forth. Lots of violence, but you know, I think that the fact that their team is comprised of players who are playing at a fairly decent level in Europe. I mean, they've even got Premier League players, right? Bellegarde plays at Wolves, and he's been a monster for them. I mean, he's been so key. So it's interesting that it's Haiti that comes out of that group, because you look at Costa Rica, you look at Honduras. Yes, they have players who are playing in Europe, but it's not as many as Haiti has. It's just an interesting thing to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You had a point, Tom?
No. Just the point I was making earlier. That is, I think it's this is the joy of the expanded edition of the World Cup, and I can't wait to see, you know, to find out more about these teams. There's bound to be, just on the way these things go, like just based on history, there's bound to be surely one of these teams. I'm not saying it'll necessarily be one of the aforementioned, but like surely a team will have a run. I mean, it could be a Scotland, for instance.
I don't doubt it at all, because with so many of the third place teams going through.
Yeah.
And then you're into the knockout, and the knockout is tick, 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 tick. You know, as Jack Charlton so conclusively tried to prove in world football, you don't have to win. You get to the knockout fight, you don't have to win. You know, you can win 0-0. And just so, you know, I'm sure that there will be surprises of this nature. But now, can we please roll the drums? Because everything that Joe Gould has done so far is no more than warm-up for his finest hour. And people said after the weekend, look, Joe Gould called it exactly right because DR Congo eliminated Nigeria. You don't know the half of it. You don't know the half of it, because in order to get there, Nigeria had to play Gabon and DR Congo had to play Cameroon. And Joe Gould, he called all three of them correctly. Nigeria overcame Gabon, DR Congo overcame Cameroon, and then DR Congo overcame, although it was on penalties, with all merit after being so much better for 120 minutes. Joe Gould, what's the secret and what's going to win the 230 at Chester?
Good question. I don't know. I have no idea.
Can you tell me that England are going to win the Ashes, please, in Australia?
Yeah, it was a fun one. I mean, Gabon, I was happy that they took it to extra time, but then they lost the plot after that. Cameroon is just not in a good spot right now. And Chancellor Mbemba for DR Congo. I mean, that guy, he popped up in two critical moments. He got the winner. He sunk the winner for DR Congo against Cameroon late in the game. And then he steps up, takes that penalty, smashes it home, sends them to the playoff. So, I mean, he was massive for them. Look, they're a good team. I think that they will make the World Cup at DR Congo
or the World Cup.
The World Cup.
Whoa.
and yeah, I think they're a team that people should really actually look out for coming from pot 4, because they'll be one of the teams in pot 4. I think they will be a tricky side. They could definitely be one of those teams that ends up in a third place spot. Obviously, depends on the draw, but I would not put it past them to finish in like a second or third place in their group and move out of that. I think they're a good enough team to do that.
Very, very impressed with them. Really impressed with them on the big occasion. And this for me, there is so much history here, because this is the first sub-Saharan African country to play in a World Cup, when they were called Zaire in 1974. And this brings me on to, I think, one of the big subjects of the last few days, which is Il Signore Gattuso, the coach of Italy, and his comments about how Europe is being penalised in World Cup qualification. And Italy, one of the stars of real star emerging for Brazil, he's a goal a game, Estevan.
Yeah.
He was born in 2007. In his lifetime, Italy have not played a knockout game in a World Cup. The last knockout game they played in a World Cup was the final of 2006 when they won. After that, they've either first eliminated in the group stages and then not going at all. So clearly, Gattuso is blaming the wrong people. You got to look at yourselves when you got that kind of that kind of retrospective. But what leaps to my eyes, because this is an argument which is often made in Brazilian club football, used to be made a lot, not so much these days. Big clubs shouldn't be allowed to be relegated. They shouldn't, because they're too big. They shouldn't. And Gattuso's argument really is the appeal to tradition. That Italy, all the tradition we have, it should be easier for us to go to the World Cup because of our tradition. And where I think this is so wrong is that tradition isn't static. You make tradition every day. Let's go back to Holland. Holland, 74, I think, was their first World Cup. They had no tradition. A couple of years before, Brazil is organising a mini World Cup. It's part of 150 years celebration of Brazil's independence. It's also a big part of Avalanche's campaign to become FIFA president. So Brazil organises this tournament and it invites everyone. And one by one, a lot of nations decline. And one of the nations that declined was Holland. And I found the leading Brazilian football magazine from that time. And it said, Holland have declined the invitation. And between ourselves, no one's going to miss Holland. Oh, wonderful words. And then 2 years later, Holland render South American football obsolete.
Yeah.
With a team which is still seen as one of the most important and most revolutionary in world football.
Yep.
So tradition is created, and then suddenly Holland have a tradition. And tradition is created all the time. And if you look at Zaire in 74, I saw their games a few years ago. They lost 2-0 to Scotland. And in the last game, only 3-0 to Brazil, when Brazil had to score 3. In the middle, they lost 9-0 to Yugoslavia. Why did they lose 9-0 to Yugoslavia? Now, there's lots of things about the political pressure that was put on them and so on. But strictly with the football, there were players in that Zaire team who could play. What they couldn't do was defend against crosses. They had no idea. So it was like ball in the air, Uruguayan centre-forward goal. Because they couldn't defend against crosses. Why? Because they'd never seen that type of football before. You know, they hadn't come across it because they hadn't been let in the loop. They weren't in the loop. There was no pathway for them because prior to that, you know, as recently as 66, there was no automatic place for an African team. After that, from 1970, there's one automatic place. So at that time, how do you create a tradition, a global tradition in the global sport when you're not? How do you know how to behave at the party if you're locked out? Right. You can't do it. Right. You can't do it. You know, the old James Brown song. I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open up the door and I'll get it myself. You know, no one had opened up the door for teams from Africa. Now, thankfully, and this is boosted by Tommy, you're quite right, the expansion to 48, Africa has the chance to get in there and deepen its own tradition. So are you as opposed as I am to the comments from Gattuso?
I am, yeah. And also I find it quite disappointing that those comments have come from him, because he's like, I know his managerial career has, like, excuse me for referencing the GIF, but has been sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. But he was a player who I adored. He was a footballer who me as an amateur Sunday league and 5-a-side, 7-a-side player, he was a player who I based my whole game on, Gennaro Gattuso. My brother was the Perlo next to me, and I was Gattuso. I just ran ragged and kicked people, and I still play like that at the age of 35. But it's mad. I was looking at this. I was writing about this the other day about Italy, and I was looking back at this kind of just backs up your point, Tim, about the fact that they haven't played a qualifying game since 2006. This could be their third World Cup on the bounce, their third consecutive World Cup that they don't get into. So they failed in the playoffs for Qatar, failed in the playoffs for Russia. They keep getting to this position, but you can't, for that amount of time, for a 7-8 year period, it can't just be like a bad batch, a bad generation of players. Italy always have good players. Inter Milan got to the Champions League final twice in the last 3 years with a lot of Italian players. Like, you know, and I know they're a fun example. They're a bit of a mishmash squad of, like, there's a few older players, and I know the finances in Serie A aren't as good, but they still have, like, you know, they still have Donnarumma in goal, for God's sake. Like, you know, that this, and I don't agree with him, but I see what I think it's sad. Me personally, I want to see Italy at a World Cup, but I have no sympathy for them if they can't get there. That's up to him and his players. And having said that, before the Norway game, they had won 6 qualifying games in a row. So, you know, like, it's not like they've been dreadful in his reign, but unfortunately, he came up against the force of Erling Haaland, and, you know, there is not an answer to that. But yeah, on the comments, I think it's a ridiculous thing to say, and I think he probably does. He's probably, a lot of it might be desperation. He probably doesn't really necessarily even think that himself, I would have thought, or I would have hoped.
We were just about to bring Matt in, and he's disappeared from us as well. Please sort out that electricity bill. Come on, come back. As a dyed-in-the-wool globalist, Joe Gould, I imagine that you two have similar thoughts.
Yeah, I disagree with him. I actually, my opinion on this is, I think that there's enough quality globally in many national teams that I don't actually think the quality of this World Cup is going to go down a whole lot, if really at all. I think it's affordable that it was expanded, and I think you're going to see a lot of nations who in years prior would have been cut out, but could have performed as admirably as others had they been in their stead. So maybe I'll be wrong, but that's kind of my take on it. I think it's worthwhile. So.
I agree with you, but it does leave me with a worry for the World Cup, which is Jack Charltonitis. The fact that you really don't have to do very much to keep making progress in the competition. You know, one win in the group stage, and then you spawn your way through. I see. My fear is that the ease with which you qualify for the knockout phases, plus extreme heat, is going to lead to cautious football. That's my fear for the tournament.
I think it's valid. I really do. Yeah, I think it's very valid. Hey, can I just go back to DR Congo real quick? So there's a funny story I want to make sure we get out here because I think it's hilarious. So right before they started the penalty kicks, DR Congo subbed their goalkeeper, right? And
I'm so glad you said subbed and you didn't say subbed off. It's something that drives me mad. When if you're subbed, where are you going to go? He was subbed upwards. He was resurrected mysteriously. No, you're subbed. You are taken off. You are removed. So please, can we launch a campaign here against the expression subbed off?
Right.
Proceed.
So he brings on Timothy Fayulu, who is now playing in Armenia with FC Noah. He was playing in Switzerland last year with FC Sion. And yeah, it's funny because we heard after the match that, well, it was a weird substitution because if you look at how Fayulu has done last season with his club in Switzerland, he came up against 5 penalty kicks through the whole season. He didn't save any of them.
Wow.
So why is he making this substitution, right? Well, it comes down to a dream that Fayulu had, and he told DeSaver, and that's why he was subbed in. So yeah, it's only a decision that could happen with Mama Africa, right? And so he brings him in. He takes out a starting goalkeeper, brings in Fayulu, the third backup, right? And it's just wild. So there was a dream that Fayulu had, like, not even recently, it was some time ago, apparently, that the match would end in a tie. And in the dream, Fayulu saw exactly where each Nigerian player would shoot their penalty. This is what he's saying. And so the Fayulu, and now it's history, right? With no reputation of saving penalties. He saved 2, and then Nigeria missed another one. And that's what got Congo to the thing. Crazy.
It's like an episode of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I was in the stadium the day when it was a Colombia-Argentina game in the 1999 Copa America, when Martin Palermo missed 3 penalties for Argentina. And the Colombian coach, who was a lunatic called Javier Alvarez, he was saying in the press conference afterwards, I used my mental powers to ensure that whatever gets you through to the final results. Tommy, generic thoughts on European World Cup qualification?
I mean, where to start? Portugal looked. I suppose the opposition was a little bit inferior, but Portugal looked. They looked unleashed without Cristiano Ronaldo. Let's just say that. I think when I wrote about it, I said Roberto Martinez will never admit this out loud, but there was a lot of cohesion and there was a lot of togetherness in that Portugal team without Cristiano Ronaldo in that 9-0. Was it 9-0 or 9-1 victory over Armenia? Yeah. 2 hat tricks. My hero, a man I've written about a lot, Bruno, and talked about a lot and sung my love for a lot in the Stratford End, Bruno Fernandes, scoring one of those hat tricks. I think Portugal actually, I genuinely do believe, like I know they won the Nations League, like beating a brilliant Spain team in that final. I think they might. This could be their time, and I'm not obviously when I was 17, 18 growing up, going to Man United games, I worshipped Cristiano Ronaldo. I see him as a much different person now, with different specs on. I see him, having pictures with President Trump, and it's not just that. Like, let's even take all of that stuff out of it. Let's, take the person out of it. And I do think they're a better team without him, and I do think they would have a much better chance of winning this World Cup without him. But that's not going to happen. He will be there. He will be playing that World Cup. He wants his 6th World Cup. He wants to keep breaking records for himself. I don't believe like much of that is for Portugal. I think much of that is for himself. Spain look brilliant. I really love, and even again, like I'm a Man United fan, but I'm a massive fan of Mikel Merino just as a footballer. I think he's a really fun, interesting footballer. Like he's
not a bit woolly.
A bit woolly.
Yeah. Merino, Tommy. It's a well-known brand of wool. Sorry, pathetic, really. Juvenile. Please proceed.
It took a while for the penny to drop, but it got there. I think he's just. So when was it last season? I can't remember who it was against, but Arteta just played him up top, and he said he's never. I don't think he'd played as a striker. I don't think he played as a number 9 since he was about, I think he said 12 years old or something like that. Played him up top. I think it was against Leicester, that was it. Scored 2 goals starting as a striker. And now he's emerged. I think he was Spain's top scorer in qualifying with 6 goals, which is for a midfielder or a false 9 or whatever he is. I just like players who will kind of say yes and just kind of do a job in kind of any position. And yeah, he's one of those players. Spain are impressive as always. And then I do have to, and by the way, I should say that this is an England cricket hat, not an England football hat. However, I'm not, I am a club before country person, but I do, I don't know if you guys saw this, but so obviously I'm going to go to England quickly, but Ian Wright talking about Jude Bellingham on the Gary Neville's podcast, which I think was one of the most powerful bits of football media I've seen in a long time. And I think he was completely right. But for those who haven't seen it, it was basically Ian Wright talking about, he sent a text to Jude Bellingham on Jude Bellingham's return to the England squad after, Tuchel left him out. And I think there was a bigger deal made of that, really, because he was only just returning from injury for Real Madrid. I think he'd only made 1 substitute appearance when Tuchel announced that last squad before this one, the one he omitted him from. But Ian Wright he said he texted him just saying, like, be careful, like, watch out now. They're going to come after you, essentially. And that's exactly what happened. Like, he threw his arms up a bit because he was substituted, like anyone who loves playing football and wants to win for their country. And he was just involved in a goal, like anyone who cares that much might do. And I think, there's a lot of connotations with the English media, particularly about skin color and how players of, black players, mixed race players do get treated differently to white players. And Gary Neville added to it saying, Raheem Sterling came to him when he was an England coach, and he'd said the same thing. And Gary Neville said he now regrets it because the advice he gave him was like, well, it's because you're one of the best players. It happened to Beckham, happened to Gascoigne, happened to Rooney. But Gary Neville even admitted, like, now he looks at the difference in the headlines and the things they write about with black players. So, yeah, I just wanted to raise that point because I think it's it's really important, and fair play to Righty for speaking up on that. And with regards to, and that brings us back round to England's squad itself. With regards to England's squad and Bellingham, I think it's really interesting. Like Tuchel was saying, he's never loved a group. He's basically crying, saying he doesn't want to say goodbye to them for Christmas. He's going to miss them, and he seems to have evolved a bit like Pochettino. I think there's a lot of parallels there. He seems to have softened, but the team are also improving. Like I can say for the first time in a long time, like the England team actually looks kind of formidable. They've not let in a goal in qualifying. No European team's ever done that in qualifying before. They've won every single game. They have the choice of 6 number 10s like Phil Foden, Cole Palmer, Rodgers, Jude Bellingham. I've not even named them all. I'm missing a couple of really good ones. Jack Grealish can't even get anywhere near the squad. But most importantly, they have Harry Kane, who, for my money, I love Haaland, I love Mbappe, I love Bellingham, I love Vinicius Jr., Mo Salah, brilliant. But for the way I've been watching him at Bayern, and especially in that Borussia Dortmund game a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, the way he's playing football at the moment is just, it's absolutely incredible. Like dropping in as a 6, an 8, and just spraying the ball everywhere, but then still score. I think he's got 28 goals this season for club and country, where on November 20th, it's just like, it's crazy. So yeah, I think England, I actually do think for once that even though we've had some great generations before, I think with this manager, England do stand a really good chance next year.
One of the things that you learn again and again and again is that qualification is one thing and a tournament is another. You talked about England hardly letting in a goal, or not letting in a goal. Serbia qualifying for 2006, I think they'd maybe let in one.
Yeah.
And then they came up against Argentina. Yeah. And all the buses came at once. So forgetting the qualification and looking ahead to the World Cup and the conditions in which the World Cup will be played and the time that the World Cup is being played at the end of the European season, who do you see as the potential big hitters from Europe? Joe?
From Europe? I think England's in the conversation because of that depth. You're going to need that in the heat. So I think that's going to be helpful. We had a conversation the other week about their defense, which maybe there's still some question marks there a little bit, but I think England has to be in the picture. Maybe more than them though. I really like Spain. I think Spain is definitely up there. In fact, I would go so far as to say that right now we obviously don't know how it's going to shake out, but I'm imagining a Spain-Argentina final at the moment, which I think would be an absolute classic.
They would be my 2 favorites, to be honest.
Yeah, both teams are playing really well. So Spain's up there. Portugal, I think Portugal is a shout. This is definitely one of the. It definitely seems like it's kind of coming together for them. So, this might be one of the best shots that they've had in a long time. I would say they're always up there. They're always in the conversation.
Tom, we haven't mentioned France.
And
France, I was about to come around to France, and with the form Mbappe's on, he's on that similar sort of Ballon d'Or chasing form that Haaland and Kane on. It seems to be like a 3-horse race, and they've all stepped up their game this season. But like France, I think it's Deschamps' last tournament as France manager. That'll mean a lot to them. He's obviously won the World Cup in 2018. He won the Nations League with them. So and they have incredible depth, and when you look at a France team from sort of any given generation, like since 1998 or since the 80s, like it always looks good on paper, but you can't rule them out with like I don't know. I think maybe they're a bit too pragmatic. I'm not sure. I'm not. I feel like when a manager is having to, when it's sort of the fact that it's kind of about Deschamps already, like preemptively, even before a ball's been kicked, and a lot of the media will be about that. And then if it goes wrong, and France are prone to capitulations at tournaments, as we've seen in the last sort of 15 years. If anything goes wrong, then the French media will turn quickly on him and them. So I don't know,
they're very prone to what they call, I think, le argument inside the dressing room, aren't they? They're very prone to
that. Yeah, but I think they have to be in the conversation, though. I think that's a good shout.
They do.
Like,
they do.
If we're saying that it could be the World Cup that favours pragmatic football,
right?
Yeah,
maybe we're looking at France big time.
Yeah, of course.
The only concerns I have, and I don't even know if these are large concerns, but I look, and to Tim's point, the tournament itself is vastly different from qualifying. But if you look at qualifying, their matches against Iceland, like Iceland kind of exposed them a little bit. Iceland stayed in those games a lot longer than I think anybody would have expected. So it's just interesting that just kind of toys in my mind. I think the other team too from Europe, you have to talk about Germany. I think they have to be in that conversation too. You want to talk about pragmatic.
Yeah, Germany. This Germany team, and I need to write this down somewhere because I was thinking this the other day. With and I'm going to say the name wrong now, but with Baltimore up top.
Nicky, you know who you're talking about.
The big Geordie lad. They remind me of that, and especially the way the German media are talking about them, because they lost, didn't they? They lost their first match in these qualifiers to was it Slovakia?
It was Slovakia.
And it reminds me of that 2002 German team who, people were saying it's one of the worst Germany teams of all time before the tournament. And I only know this because the DVD that I have worn out the most in my life is the 2002 World Cup DVD, because that was like mine and my brother's. I remember 98, but 2002 was the first one where, I knew everything. I knew every single player, and I rewatched that DVD again and again.
What a shame! I think it's the worst all-time World Cup.
Yeah. I know.
Everyone's knackered. Hence the fact that a Germany side that were dreadful got to the final.
So what? Yeah, exactly. And I think this Germany team, by German standards, is this is the Man United fan in me having a dig, but when your key player is Florian Wirtz, then I think you're pretty toasted. No, that's unfair. I know he's a good player. And he's very good for them. He is very good for Germany. But you know what I mean? Like that, it's not the best German team. Like a lot of the big hitters have retired, and there's the whole thing with Nagelsmann and like Emmanuel Neuer. Will they? Won't they? Will they kiss? Will he return? What's going on there? And just on paper and the way the way they've played, from what I've seen of them, I've watched a fair view of their match in qualifiers. It doesn't seem too fluid, but like we said, if pragmatic football, which I know Nagelsmann isn't naturally a pragmatic manager, but if there's less people looking at them, if there's less expectations on them than usual, which it seems there is, especially with a couple of the results they've had in qualifying, they could sneak under the radar because they are Germany and they like tournament football.
Just to bring this thing home now, down the final straight, Joe Gould, sir, is it only the World Cup draw on December the 5th that's keeping you alive until the end of March?
It is not. We had the playoff draws today. That was fun. Those are done and settled now for the playoff tournament that's happening in Mexico. And then also the European ones were drawn today as well. So that'll be, that was fun. You've also got the FIFA Arab Cup, which starts beginning of December. You've got AFCON coming up next month as well, which is one of our absolute favorite tournaments. Every single time, it never fails to deliver. Mama Africa, she's the best. But then you've also got the actual World Cup draw beginning of December as well. And it's so after the new year starts, then we have a bit of a bit of a dead space a little bit. But
So Happy New Year. Tommy, all-round Renaissance man, as well as writing for Men in Blazers. You have both a book and an album by your band Church Party coming out. Please tell us about them.
Yeah, I've just realised actually I've got there is a stack of books on this table. Yeah, I've got a book called The Burnt Offering. You can see it a little bit there. It's a book of poetry.
It looks like the cover's been burnt. I can't see anything. Right, so this is a book of poetry.
Yeah, short stories and poems that I've sort of written over the last sort of 10, 15 years maybe. And I've been putting it off since I started getting these together in like 2017. And yeah, I was just put it off and kept putting it off for years. And then this year I decided I was going to finally release an album and finally release a book and become a full-time writer. And I've done those things, so I can retire now, Tim. All I need is some money, and then I can retire. But yeah, so that the book is on
money
sale.
will come in. Yeah, go on. The money will come in as a result of the Church Party album. Please tell us more.
There you go. Yeah, so the book's on sale.
And tell us where we can get the book.
Yes, the book is on sale at a Village bookstore. If you just put that in Google or put that on Instagram, the links are on their page. So yeah, Village Bookstore. And then the album by Church Party. My band is called Eternal Life Sanctuary. If you listen to this on Thursday, 20th of November, we have a launch gig for it in Manchester at a lovely bar called the Rat and Pigeon, which is a very English, very Mancunian bar name. And it's nearly sold out. There's about 5 tickets left. So come along and listen to the album on any streaming platform.
Could I be vulgar and ask you the genre?
Yeah. It's, I guess, post-punk, indie, alternative, there's a lot of pop references in there. There's a lot. I mean, you know me, Tim. I love the Beatles. There's a lot of that. A lot of, it all sort of soaks in and then finds its way out and just sounds like me chatting shit about some girl I broke up with 6 years ago.
And your wisdom has soaked in to this episode of the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast. Huge thanks to Tommy S. and huge thanks, of course, to our Nostradamus there, Joe Gould, the winner of the Man of the Year prize in Dr. Congo. That was the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast. We will reconvene next time. See you there.
Get in touch with the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast on Twitter at BrazilShirtPod, or you can email us BrazilianShirtNamePod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and tell a friend. The Brazilian Shirt Name podcast is an 1129 production.